A big hello from where you are, and welcome to the second ever edition of the Monday Prep. This does close out the second full week of Rocket Launch Sports Picks, but as mentioned, we are going to do our weekly recap of the Monday through Sunday today, alongside going through what was an absolutely magnificent Game 7 in Detroit. Cleveland makes the statement, advancing to the conference finals against the New York Knicks. All of that is to be talked about, to be recapped, and we go into today's matchup. A big matchup in the Western Conference, the Spurs and the Thunder, one that we have been anticipating for quite a while now. Cannot wait to break it all down here, but first thing, before we get on to that, let's look at our picks from yesterday. 0 for 4. I mean, Tobias Harris was an absolute non-factor for Detroit. And Paul Reed, too. I mean, the kind of minutes he played, we'll go through all that. James Harden, not a great shooting day either. He had 6 assists. He made some plays, but still not the satisfactory individual performance we thought he would have. And we'll go through what we saw with Detroit, but just overall, not their style of basketball at home in this Game 7. Cleveland Cavaliers were able to disrupt them in every way you could talk about it. Defensively, getting them to take the wrong shots. We talked about shot selection being something that was a huge strength for Detroit, but wasn't there in that Game 7 when they needed it. Before we get to that, we look at what the week of free picks looks like for Rocket Launch Sports Picks right here. It has been a 6 consecutive day streak of at least one pick correct. If you looked at last Tuesday's video and the recap before that, there was 3 out of 4 days of 0 for 4 or for 5. It was a tough one, but it has been a relatively strong streak. However, yesterday, not so great. I mean, 1 for 7, missing all those NBA picks of the Cavs in Detroit Game 7, and only getting 1 of the 3 soccer picks right. Still an overall better performance. I mean, last weekly recap, it was the first week of going under 20%. This was at 50% before the 1 for 7 Sunday, so we landed at 42.4%. Striving to go better, hit more than half of them in the upcoming week. But big news, as we speak, Winnable is launched. We got a link in the description. If you use the code TAKEOFF, you get 20 free days. It does not matter which package you get. Now, obviously, for our basketball, we do have the weekly and monthly packages. No matter which one you do, there are going to be 20 free days with the code TAKEOFF. That link is down below. We're also going to have some paid picks on there starting tomorrow. But we do have that page launched there on Winnable. We will start posting all the picks right there, including today's picks. Quick recap of the Game 7. It was a tough one for Detroit. They were down early. They were down often. They never got their grip on this game. They were shooting 35.3% from the field overall. And despite what was an okay shooting from three-pointer, I mean, 30.8 isn't terrible. In the end of the day, they just couldn't do enough. And I mean, they couldn't get the ball into the right hands of the shooters. They just couldn't make it happen. You look at this box score overall, and what you can see if you go all the way to the field goals. And again, we'll start with Cleveland because they were the victors. They shot 50.6% from the field as a team, out rebounded, including 14 offensive rebounds. Evan Mobley was making absolutely great efforts there, as was Max Struss. But you look at Donovan Mitchell, 10 for 22 from the field. He also went 2 for 6 from 3. Other than that, you look at Sam Merrill off the bench. He was one guy we did not expect would contribute, but 7 for 10 from the field, 5 for 8 from three-pointer. I mean, that's just incredible 25 minutes off the bench, and a team that overall was very thin on the bench. Now, Max Struss got into the lineup. He came off the bench in other games. Dennis Schroeder, overall solid in the series off the bench. He played good defense, 18 minutes, 1 for 1 from the field. And even Dean Wade was efficient from the field. But you can see the one player not very efficient from Cleveland was the guy that we thought would carry them more today, James Harden. 2 for 10. He had a rough game for the Cleveland Cavaliers. But overall, a very consistent style from Kenny Atkinson. And that's something that I think was the ultimate decider in the series. He was able to have players playing consistent roles. He was able to stay relatively consistent with his lineups. And that's something that, through the thick and thin, Kenny Atkinson was able to trust his players more than J.B. Bickerstaff on the other end for Detroit. And I think that was overall what got him in the grudge match. But let's go through Detroit. Go through the box score for Detroit just very, very quick. Again, very dismal. Cade Cunningham, 5 for 16. They relied way too much on Cade Cunningham in this series. That ultimately was a big decider. But Tobias Harris, 0 for 6. That he was on our player prop. Nobody with more than 5 assists. That was in part because they were not shooting the ball well, but in part they just weren't getting the high percentage looks. And if you saw the game, I was watching most of it, you felt it. A lot of forced shots when they were losing. They got down early, they got down often. They were forcing up, mid-range two-pointers. They were forcing up some unbalanced shots, and it really was eating away at them. One player who did shoot well, who was the most consistent shooter for Detroit in this series, was Duncan Robinson. 4 for 7, 3 for 5 from three-pointer. We had some player props on him in this series. He was really their one guy who actually took good shots and made them. But the structure just wasn't there for Detroit. Jalen Duren got dominated. Cade Cunningham couldn't let it fall. And again, he just seemed like he was pressing at times in the series. And we saw that from him. Ulster Thompson also did not have the impact that he did in the regular season either. Enough of that. Let's go to Western Conference Game 1. We got the Thunder. We got the Spurs. A big matchup. We go through our 3 player props. We only got 3 for this one. We are following the principle, do less before you do more. We're introducing winnable. We're going to also be talking about introducing threads and X. Those are things I'll talk about at the very end. We're going to start off with only 3 picks for today. Those are also going to be our extent of the paid picks for today. We will have additional paid picks tomorrow or Wednesday for the NBA, alongside 3 or 4 free picks that we'll put on this video. De'Aaron Fox going over 14.5 field goals. Isaiah Hartenstein, 5.5 defensive rebounds. He's been a very consistent player for the Thunder in this playoffs. And lastly, SGA, named to his second MVP yesterday by a landslide, going over 42.5 points, rebounds, and assists combined. He's been a key player. We'll break down how he's played against San Antonio and how we can expect him to have a big Game 1 on the statement night where he took his second MVP. Let's get to the action. Let's get to the business. De'Aaron Fox. He's a big player for San Antonio. He's bound to go over 14.5 field goal attempts. I'll show you on the next page kind of where the Spurs rank in that, but looking at the basic charts here, he has done that in 6 out of his last 10. He's done that in 10 of his last 20. So at least 50% of his recent games. You can also see that in the series in the last series against Minnesota, he had done it in 3 out of 6. Also plenty of looks in the previous series against Portland as well. Going head-to-head against the Thunder, Spurs have won 4 out of 5 against the Thunder. He had done it in 2 of those 5 games this season, but if you look back at the previous season, he had done it in the previous 3 games. 5 out of 8 for De'Aaron Fox in that regard. He takes the second most field goals on his team over the course of the season, only trailing Wemby, and not so much though. You can see that throughout the season, only 33 more field goals than him. You can see he's well above his other teammates, Stephon Castle, among the others. And he's still getting the consistent minutes, as you can see on the chart right there, this postseason compared to times of the regular season where at times it dropped. But De'Aaron Fox continues to be a key player for Mitch Johnson here in the postseason, keeping his minutes average up. He averages solid over 30 minutes a game. He's been getting some good looks. He's had couple down shooting days in the Minnesota series, but expect San Antonio, especially with Chet Holmgren out there. And that's another thing we got to think about, matchups. Chet Holmgren's going to be out there. Victor Wembanyama, as we saw in the series, is going to distribute the ball well, with a big man, limiting his shots at least somewhat. Expect De'Aaron Fox to be a big-time shooter for San Antonio in the series. On to the other side of the court, two big picks for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Isaiah Hartenstein, he's played a good all-around game for Oklahoma City. He's done it in 3 of his last 4, going over 5.5 defensive rebounds. So he's gotten 7 defensive rebounds in 3 out of 4. You can see not really too much before that, including the series against the Suns. But if you look at the bigger trend, he has had a good streak towards the end of the regular season, as well as the Suns series to begin with. He has done it in 10 of his last 20 games. And against San Antonio, he played 4 of the 5 games over the course of the season against San Antonio. Well, this season, he played in 3 of them. 1 of them was from the previous season. But he has done it in 3 of the last 4 that he's played in against the San Antonio Spurs and Victor Wembanyama. Looking at his career trend, he has really been a big part of this Oklahoma City Thunder team, more than we've seen in other teams he's been on in his career. So you can see that he's played with the Clippers, he's been with the Knicks, the Denver Nuggets. So he was a journeyman before his last couple years in Oklahoma City, but the coaching staff has found the role in his offense. I have a hard time pronouncing that coach's name. Diganot. I always have a hard time with his name, but he's used Isaiah Hartenstein so well in his couple years in Oklahoma City. They were able to really find a relative diamond in the rough, and you can see that it's been very consistent throughout the playoffs. 8.8 rebounds, slightly below his regular season average, but again, that speaks to the fact that he continues to be a big part of the offense, even if he's slightly below, and a big part of the defense and rebounding. And this is something that we shall continue to expect with Chet Holmgren playing his role with Victor Wembanyama. Expect Isaiah Hartenstein to be a big player in this entire series, offensively and defensively, for Oklahoma City. Off to SGA, the one and only SGA, the now 2-time reigning MVP. He is bound to go over 42.5 points, rebounds, and assists, something he's done in 30% or 3 of his last 10, 7 of his previous 20, including a couple games in the Suns series. Against San Antonio, he has absolutely raked. 57%, 4 out of 7, including all 5 of those regular season games that Oklahoma City only won 1. That's a big chip that SGA's got on his shoulder. He wins the MVP, but now with his team having lost 4 out of 5 against San Antonio, he's going to have to come out with a big chip on his shoulder. If you look out, zoom out, regular season, he's done it in 49% of the playoff and regular season games this year. And again, even in bigger proportion against San Antonio. If you look at the averages from postseason to the regular season, you can see right here that the playoff averages, just like with Isaiah Hartenstein, slightly below the regular season averages. Now, I'd say it with both of these guys because one of the big factors was the lack of competitive games that they had, particularly against Phoenix. But even in that last series, they had some relatively blowout games, mowing right by them, mowing right through the Lakers. And that's something that, against San Antonio, there's going to be a lot more competitive minutes for both Isaiah Hartenstein and SGA. So we got to expect that SGA and Hartenstein are going to have to play harder, they're going to have to play more, and they're going to have to really prove something against this San Antonio team. That is it for our picks. Remembering, we got some imminent launches of Instagram, Threads, and X. So we will put some links to that platform tomorrow or Wednesday. We talked about all of that to come this week. Also linking up a Discord community. That's also going to be the priority after this. That is a wrap for today. Remember, our Eastern Conference will be the focus for the basketball video for tomorrow. We'll recap the Game 1. It is going to be a ferocious, exciting Game 1 in Oklahoma City tonight between the Thunder and the Spurs. Let's enjoy it. grab our popcorn. We got our conference finals. We are so much closer to the NBA finals. Let's get it.